Hello, I'm Achut Nair from Nair's Aviation Ground School. This is the 33rd video in a new series of educational and informative aviation videos for the aspiring pilot. Flying has always been a daredevil activity, with the immense danger and risks of early aviation only being outshined by the larger-than-life characters who piloted those complicated flying contraptions. One such person made such a huge impact on flying that his name is spoken with reverence in aviation circles, and his life plays like a blockbuster action movie. This video is about Bob Hoover. Bob Hoover is one of the aviation greats. A soldier, stuntman, and teacher, he has touched the lives of innumerable pilots around the world. In fact, I had the honor of meeting with Bob Hoover in 2014 and 2015 when I received my Bob Hoover and Cessna Jet Pilots Association Aviation Award and Scholarship. He was a pilot's pilot, and even at 93 years old, was able to tell us stories about his many flying adventures. Hoover was born in Nashville, Tennessee, on January 24, 1922. He learned to fly at Nashville's Berry Field and worked at a grocery store to earn the money required for flight instruction. Almost immediately, Hoover began to try his hand at rolls and loops and taught himself aerobatics. The young pilot then enlisted in the Tennessee National Guard and was later received orders to the Army Pilot Training School. By this time, international tensions had escalated, and World War II was raging in both the European and Pacific theaters of conflict. During World War II, Hoover was sent to Casablanca, where his first major assignment was flight testing the already assembled aircraft that were ready for service. He was later assigned to the Spitfire-equipped 52nd Fighter Group in Sicily. On February 9, 1944, on his 59th mission, his malfunctioning Mark V Spitfire was shot down by a pilot of the Jagdgeschwader II in a Focke-Wulf FW-190 off the coast of southern France, and he was taken as a prisoner of war. He spent 16 months at the German prison camp Stalag Luft 1 in Barth, Germany. After a staged fight covered his escape from the prison camp, Hoover managed to steal an FW-190 from a recovery unit's unguarded field, the only flyable plane being kept there for spare parts, and flew to safety in the Netherlands. After the war, he became a frontline military test pilot, flying the F-84, the P-80, and others at Wright Field. In 1947, he was the backup pilot for Chuck Yeager, who flew the Bell X-1 beyond the speed of sound. He then became a civilian test pilot for the Allison Division of General Motors and the North American Aviation, where he flew the first flight of the XFJ-2 Fury and became a civilian graduate of the U.S. Navy Test Pilot School to continue carrier flight testing of the FJ-2. He tested the F-86 Sabre, including one 40-minute flight with a failed flight control systems, and demonstrated the jet to Air Force pilots in Korea, flying several bombing missions to prove the validity of new bombing procedures. His flight tests and engineering knowledge led to the redesign of the tail of the first century series supersonic fighter, the F-100 Super Sabre. Hoover moved into corporate positions and also continued to fly a precision aerobatic routine at military and civilian air shows with North American P-51 Mustangs. For many years, flying the bright yellow P-51 Old Yeller, Hoover started the unlimited class race at the Reno Air Races with a signature phrase, Gentlemen, you have a race. As a safety pilot there, his advice saved the lives of several pilots in emergency situations. He was the captain of the 1966 U.S. aerobatic team, and his skill as an aerobatic performer is unmatched. He set altitude and speed records in North American and Rockwell aircraft, and was routinely sent abroad to the Paris Air Show and even Moscow to demonstrate aircraft. Hoover demonstrated the business version of the T-39 jet, the Sabreliner, and then in 1968 he began demonstrating the Aero Commander fleet at the National Business Aircraft Maintenance Show in Reading, Pennsylvania. He earned his helicopter rating in 1970. He began flying the Shrike Commander model in 1973. Shrike Commander 500S and number 500RA was manufactured in 1972. President and CEO of Rockwell International, Robert Anderson, first flew the aircraft, followed by several other owners before Hoover bought it in 1979. And 500RA was a production 500S business aircraft, with the exception of smoke and propeller unfeathering systems. He painted it in a distinctive white and green paint scheme, with his name on the top of each wing. Hoover's routine demonstrated the Shrike's excellent low and high speed handling capabilities and its one engine and no engine performance. But because it was a stock business aircraft that lacked highly modified engines and quick climb or turn characteristics, the Shrike Commander was a much more challenging aircraft for airshow flights than his old P-51 fighter. In addition to 16-point rolls and loops, Hoover flew a precise dead stick or no engine maneuver with a loop, 8-point roll, 180-degree turn to a touchdown, with first one wheel and then the opposite wheel landing, and then taxiing to the airshow center. One particular maneuver demonstrated Hoover's superb pilot skills in both the Shrike and the Sabreliner, but it is only visible on film. At altitude, Hoover would set a glass on top of the instrument panel and proceed to pour iced tea into the glass from a pitcher in his right hand, while using his left hand to completely roll the aircraft. Combining centrifugal force with smooth handling of the controls, he never spilled a drop of the tea.
I had Secretary of the Air Force, Gene Sukert, in the co-pilot seat, and he had the aft part of the airplane filled with generals, and he said, "Bob, can the airplane be rolled?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And I rolled, and the generals were all having a cup of coffee, and none of them spilled a drop. And then I got so bold as to think that maybe I could even pour iced tea. So then we put it on film. Now the difficult thing to think about is try to pour backhanded to see it on camera. Believe it or not, you can see the horizon going around as the tea is poured into the glass.
In 1989, Bob Hoover was involved in a crash at an air show held at Brown Field in San Diego. Hoover was taking passengers for flights in the Shrike Commander. When the plane had climbed to 300 feet, it lost all power and gravity started to pull it relentlessly back to the earth. Bob Hoover managed to cut the airspeed and safely crash-landed the plane uphill onto the side of a ravine. The plane was severely damaged, but he and his two passengers walked away. What caused the power failure? This was the question spinning in Bob Hoover's mind as he sat on the hillside waiting to be rescued. So he walked back to the plane and smelled the fuel. Instead of gasoline, it was jet fuel. A member of the ground crew had mistaken the piston engine airplane for a turboprop and misfueled it. It was a simple mistake, as easy as putting petrol in your diesel engine, but it was rather more dramatic results. The accident led to a simple process improvement, the development of the Hoover nozzle, a filling mechanism that prevents the inadvertent filling of a gasoline-powered airplane with aviation fuel. Hoover flew the aircraft at air shows in the United States and around the world until April 1994, when the FAA intervened. In a highly controversial decision, Hoover's medical certificate was revoked, causing an outcry from the aviation community. Hoover submitted to several medical examinations and flight tests, consistently proving his health qualifications and flight proficiency, before a certificate was restored to him at age 73 in October 1995. Robert A. Hoover has flown more than 300 types of aircraft at more than 2,500 air shows. He is the recipient of the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Soldier's Medal for Valor, the Air Medal with Clusters, the Purple Heart, and the French Croix de Guerre. A graduate of both the USAF Test Pilot School and the U.S. Navy Test Pilot School, he is a past president of the Society of Experimental Test Pilots, and the only man to serve 2 terms as president. He is an inductee of the National Aviation Hall of Fame and the International Council of Air Shows Hall of Fame. He was also made an honorary member of the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds, and the American Fighter Aces Association. He is the recipient of the Smithsonian Institution's Lindbergh Medal, Living Legends of Aviation Award, the 2007 National Air and Space Museum Trophy for Lifetime Achievement, and the 2014 National Aeronautic Association Wright Brothers Memorial Trophy. Robert Hoover died on October 25, 2016, near his home in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 94. His was a life that was contrary to the tired, overused idiom that states that there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old, bold pilots. Bob Hoover was as bold as they come, and he kept flying into his golden years. He is truly an inspiration for pilots around the world. His was a life well lived. For more information, please contact us at liftanddrag@gmail.com and visit our website at nyersaviation.webnode.com. Also, please visit our channel on YouTube under Nyers Aviation. Thank you and safe flying.